we are finally getting into a Marvel movie first.
Yep.
And we are going to hit it off with, of course, I'm drawing a blank. Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Good start. It's because we're talking Green Lantern in the green room.
Oh my gosh, I know. But it's true. We're not going in order. Whichever one comes out of the box is the one we're reviewing, and that's where we are. We are reviewing Avengers: Age of Ultron, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get there, let me do some real quick housekeeping, and then of course we'll introduce our special guest with Dan and I. Of course, theliveplace.com. Dean, he is the TV guide of live streamers Monday through Sunday. If you're looking for a stream, theliveplace.com is the place to go to find one family-friendly for sure. Of course, our two partner channels, Steve's World and that guy right over there. There he is. Dan, high five.
No, wrong way.
Steve goes live on Mondays with Just Another Monday Night, and Dan goes live on Thursdays with Nuts About Disney, right? Fridays with Disney from Friday.
Yep.
Saturday, Disney Fiasco, and of course, right here on Sundays.
Yeah. Busy.
Right. Yeah. Membership, thank you to all of our members. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your loyalty. We definitely appreciate it. One of them is right down there. There he is right there. And let's say hi to everybody in the chat really, really fast. Brian Eisenhart, one of our members. What's up, Brian? Good to see you, buddy. Disney Dan is here. Disney Dan, welcome in. Wendy Luhu, another member. Good to see you, Wendy. Donna Jaworski and Richard, the legend, R. Johns, are both here. Both members. Good to see you both. Super Fluffy Yeti, welcome in. That's an awesome
I told
name,
you
by the
yesterday,
way.
one of my favorite names. Super
I
Fluffy
know.
Yeti.
That is an awesome name. Welcome in. Mickey Movies with Alex Brenna is here. Alex, good to see you. And T Marie Photography, welcome in as well. Another one of our members. And Make It Blue, a Disney Adventure. Caitlin, welcome in. Another member. Good to see you, Caitlin. Hope you're doing well. And Joey's World's here. Carlos
Hey,
sent us over. Oh, thanks, Carlos. Appreciate it, pal. Awesome. All right. So, of course, we do have a very special guest with Dan and I this week. He is a big Marvel fan. Not that you can tell from the shirt or what's behind it. But he is a big Marvel fan. And, of course, he does his own Nerd Talk show on Saturdays. Am I right?
No, Sundays at 4.
Sundays at 4. I'm sorry. It was today. Okay.
Yeah.
And, of course, that is the one and only, the awesome Mr. Russ Stapleton. Welcome in, buddy. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Be fun.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time tonight. And, of course, this guy right over here, my partner channel, we do this every single Sunday, more than likely. And, of course, that's Disney Dan. Dan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm recovering from the shenanigans of yesterday, and I can't wait to have more shenanigans today.
We're going to have fun. We really are. It's going to be a good time for sure. Also, welcome in Emily, LSU mom. Welcome in. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And I think we'll call up on the chat. So, guys, yep, we're going to talk about Age of Ultron. Now, this is movie number 7, 8, 9. I think it's up there. We're well into the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point.
Phase 2.
Yep. Phase 2.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, phase 2 for sure. It is the second of the assemble of the Avengers. Of course, the first one was Avengers, and this is Avengers: Age of Ultron. This is also the last time we see them as a big group. We'll get a couple other movies where we'll have a good portion of them, but not everybody's together. Exactly. This is the last one where we get everybody together.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting movie to talk about, and we're going to get into it in a minute. But it's also a divisive movie. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, this is good," and there's a lot of people that say, "Nope, not a fan for sure."
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the last MCU movie directed by Joss Whedon, which is very interesting because he smashed it out of the park with the first Avengers film, and then he did this film, and then he hasn't been in the MCU since. So it's very interesting to see a director change.
Yeah, for sure. Jonathan Chong, welcome in. James Ryan, another member, is here. What's up, James? Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for being here. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. So let's kind of start. We're going to break it down a little bit, talking about the movie itself and what it's about, and then we're going to get into favorite scenes, favorite parts of it, kind of the introduction of some new characters, and kind of the direction it takes the entire MCU moving forward. Russ, I'll start with you. Of course, this movie starts out with a bang, literally from the very, very beginning. I mean, they're already in the process of fighting what ultimately is the downfall of Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. because Winter Soldier has already happened. We already know the effects of that, and they're still kind of cleaning up the mess from what S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra was when this movie initially starts. Would you agree?
Yeah. It's they're coming now to they're starting to go out on their own, and they're come together as a team. It's the first, you see that they've got this dynamic already that they are a team, and they're going out to basically mop up Hydra, and they from the effects of Winter Soldier, that's what we're seeing now. So it's right there. So yeah,
gotcha. Dan,
I do want to point out before we start this movie, if you've never seen this movie, Wendy Lou Who, you're going to be spoiled. You are going to be spoiled. She did promise us this week she was going to watch it, but no, I'm only kidding. There will be spoilers, but yeah, I'm really interested. I love the Winter Soldier film, and obviously this continues from that. And this is the chance for the Avengers, who clearly have the upper hand. They're at their strongest to wipe out all the Hydra bases. Hail Hydra! It's a very sort of the movie starts and goes straight into the action. It's straight away. You get that Avengers pose that they do, which is pretty awesome. And it's full steam ahead. This movie, I feel, doesn't sort of stop, especially from the beginning. So I'm excited. I love the first word in this movie that I cannot say on stream because it becomes a running joke. Do you kiss your mother with that mouth? Throughout the whole movie. It's a good sort of start to the film. It feels like if you haven't seen the Winter Soldier, if you just came from the Avengers film, you could literally just watch this straight after the Avengers film and feel like the pace just continues in terms of the pace. So it's great.
I've always said to anybody, when it's probably a cinematic miracle that they were able to keep everything together and be so the continuity is so strong in all these movies. It's almost a cinematic miracle that they did it. I always say to folks, watch them in order. Don't miss any of them. There are certain little aspects of each movie that you miss that's in that next movie that refers to the other movies. And this one, in the very beginning, is actually talking about Winter Soldier when they're cleaning up the mess from that movie. And if you didn't see Winter Soldier, you may miss that point. And
the character development to get them to this point.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. Because I think and we'll get there at some point, what Endgame and Infinity War bring is that relationship we've all grown to love with these characters. It's the payoff in those movies for those characters. Pam's fan, welcome. Good to see you.
Hey, Pam.
Yep. So ultimately, let's kind of start right there. So very beginning, they're at this Hydra base, which is, I think, in Sokovia, although they don't really mention it, and we'll get back to Sokovia a little bit later in the movie. But they're going there to get the staff. And, of course, the staff goes back to the original Avengers movie. It was in that movie. And they're there to retrieve it. And, of course, Hydra has been testing some, as they call them in these movies, enhanced. They can't say mutants.
Can't say mutants.
They can't say that word yet. Disney doesn't own Fox yet.
Yep.
So they have to call them enhanced. And, of course, the bad guys, Hydra, have been testing all these different people out for enhanced abilities, and none of them have really survived except two. And this is where we actually get an introduction to two new characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of which becomes extremely important to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. One really is important, but we'll get into that. And, of course, that's the Maximoffs. We have Wanda and Pietro Maximoffs, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Right? He's Quicksilver, right?
Yep. Quicksilver.
Yeah. Two fantastic characters whose abilities, he's fast and she's weird, to just take from the movie itself.
Yeah.
But they kind of, and Russ, I want you to kind of touch on this. We won't go too far ahead just yet. They really wreak havoc on the Avengers early on. They're not ready for them. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean they're out of left field. I mean they don't know that they don't even know that they exist. I mean And if they're getting their power from the scepter, that's from from the Mind Stone. Which I mean, I'm going ahead a little bit, but I mean, they're getting their power from an Infinity Stone. So there's no way they could be ready for that. And and they play on each other's strengths because they are brother and sister. To where, it's super easy to get the drop on them. So,
yeah, agreed. But Dan, I want to touch on this. So they do ultimately break down and defeat the Hydra at this base, and during that time is kind of when Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, kind of wreaks a little bit of havoc on Tony first. Yeah, he gets it first. She kind of messes with his mind, and he sees a vision. He thinks it's a vision. He thinks he's been shown something. The others think he was just being messed with. Yeah. Dan, do you want to kind of elaborate on what he sees?
So Wanda, which I really like about Wanda is that you look at her here, she's like just the start of her powers, and obviously we'll compare her when we eventually review Endgame of how far she's grown. But even here, when she's manipulating Tony Stark, she shows him sort of the downfall and the death of the Avengers, and you've got everyone's sort of dead, or everyone's sort of lying down defeated, and Cap grabs Tony. And so, like, I can't remember exactly what he says. He was like, you should have been like a team player or something like that. It was
could have saved us. Why didn't you?
Yeah. So it was pretty much just trying to sort of manipulate him. And I love the chemistry between Wanda and her brother Pietro. Granted, Pietro, aka Quicksilver, aka the Flash, if you're from a DC universe. I thing is, this film came out just after X-Men Days of Future Past, and if you know X-Men Days of Future Past, you'll remember the incredible. There's a Quicksilver in that movie, and that is being portrayed by Evan Peters, where he does sort of that dance around the room, sort of killing all these security guards. Fantastic scene. I loved the Evan Peters Quicksilver in X-Men Days of Future Past, but this one, he didn't have a lot of charisma. He was very sort of plain. The only thing I liked about him was his little sort of squabble he had with Hawkeye, which goes on throughout the whole movie. He was like saying, "You didn't see that coming. Oh, you didn't see it." Because you got a guy who's super quick and a guy who's really quick at shooting a bow and arrow. And I love that.
He doesn't miss.
He doesn't miss. And I actually preferred their sort of, not relationship, their sort of connection with Quicksilver and Hawkeye over Quicksilver and his sister. So I really liked. I think Quicksilver gets a lot of hate because he wasn't as good as Evan Peters in X-Men, but I still enjoyed for what he was. I wish he stuck around, but we'll get to that. But
well, that's what I was going to say. Is in my opinion, I think what we got in Quicksilver for character development or lack thereof is because of ultimately the direction they were going with the character.
Yeah.
You don't give a lot, and I don't want to give it away until we get there. But it's hard to put a lot of character development into a character that's not. I'll just say that, if you know what I mean.
But for me, that wasn't Quicksilver. That wasn't Pietro. I think Russ, you can agree that.
Yeah.
For me, Quicksilver was a cocky. Sort of, he was a hot. I've got to be really sort of careful with my words here. I don't want to sort of do a zip slip or anything. He wasn't a nice kid, and he was the son of Magneto.
Yeah,
but in here he was not. Magneto's not mentioned in this movie.
I think it was look. I know the kid that played the character. He's not the best actor in the world. He's okay. I think he was trying to be cocky because I think that's what he ultimately was doing when he said, "What, you didn't see that coming?" But he was being cocky.
It wasn't like the same, but I think
I just don't think that his character was used to its full potential as far as dialogue. Obviously,
no. I don't either. But I think there was a reason for that. I think
and I agree.
Yeah. So let's kind of move forward to a little bit further. So they win. They get the scepter. They take the scepter back to Stark Tower in New York, and they're there, and things are going great. They won. They did what they wanted to do. Like they said, revels. Let's have a party, and they're having a party. But before the party, a couple days, this is where things start to, I think, change the chemistry a little bit. Tony pulls Bruce Banner to the side and says, "We've only got this staff for a couple days. I have an idea." And his intentions, I think, are ultimately good. But what he wants to do is, like he said, build a suit of armor around the world. And he thinks he can do it through the staff and what's inside the staff.
Yeah. Which will come back to relate in Avengers Endgame, because the whole reason why they lost was so that, they felt the Earth would have been protected if they had that suit of armor around the world. Right. So
and we'll get there.
His intentions were good. His intentions were very good with this idea, but again.
Exactly. And what he's ultimately trying to do is he's trying to build a system, some sort of security system for the world that would protect the world. And like he says, ultimately end the team. In other words, there would be no need for them anymore. There would be this protection around the whole world. And they get it, and they're working on the staff. The issue is Tony only tells Bruce Banner. He doesn't want to tell the rest of the team. So he's being, I hate to say it, underhanded and a little...
Well, he's being arrogant, because that's what Tony is. I mean, he thinks that he knows what's right all the time, and so he's just going to do it without permission.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Lori. Welcome in. Yeah. And so they have the scepter, and they're there for a couple of days, and they're running calculations, this and that, and they're trying to find this system that's going to work to create this suit of armor around the world, and they fail, and they just continue to fail and fail and fail. And Jarvis, of course, who is the entire system for Tony Stark and his entire company, is there, and they kind of give up. They're like, well, run some more numbers. We got to go to the party, and they're having their party. And that's what kind of happens is they think they failed, but Russ, they didn't, did they? Ultimately,
they make it, well, they introduce him and to negative reactions.
Theme Park Vets, welcome in. And Kyle, Disney Eye to Eye, through your eyes. Kyle. Welcome in. Good to see you. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm sorry, Russ, I didn't mean to interrupt you, buddy.
No, you're fine.
Dan, what do we get from this? At this point, it seems like it actually does work, and Jarvis is in the background running some numbers when all of a sudden he's there, isn't he?
Yeah, it's. I think this is sort of the creation of Ultron. I think Tony had that sort of always intention of creating Ultron, not the villain Ultron, but that sort of system that was going to, be that sort of security of the world. Right. And what Tony was saying was like, peace in our time, and you'll hear this sort of phrase a lot during the movie, peace in our time. Someone's perception of that term, peace in our time, will be different to someone else's. And I think Ultron gets completely the wrong end of the stick here, and he believes peace in our time is pretty much just, we got to start afresh, everything's got to go, everything's got to get destroyed, and
who does that sound like an Endgame?
Right.
Yeah.
So so that's what I kind of like about sort of Ultron, is that he's not sort of a living sort of villain. He kind of can he even could be still around right now in the MCU. He could be hiding somewhere in the technology, which often he does in the comics. Yeah. And you never know what's going to happen. And I enjoy sort of the character of him. So
I kind of describe him. He's a child with a God complex.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, he's naive.
But there's a reason for that too. Yeah. There's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. Who created him has a God complex. Right. And look, it's like anything else. Look, I'm a dad, and there's a lot of my traits and my personality in my sons. They have my personality. Melissa said, geez, that's just a younger you, and that's kind of what Ultron is he is this kind of I don't want to say offspring, but he is a creation of Tony Stark. Think Frankenstein's monster.
You're exactly right. You nailed it on the head there. It is exactly like Frankenstein's monster. You are totally right.
That's exactly what he is in a lot of ways. Dr. Frankenstein, when he created Frankenstein's monster, didn't do it as a result of wanting to make something that was terrible. But that's ultimately what he created.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did.
Yep. Captain Akron, welcome in. So they're at the party, and we got to touch on the party for a minute. There's a lot of fun little scenes in the party.
But plays off to big things to happen in the future.
Sure, absolutely. Whether it's the different conversations that we have. I got to touch on Banner and Maximoff for a minute. Not Maximoff, Banner and Natasha. This to me felt pushed, felt forced, because there was never really any sort of hint of a relationship between these two before this movie. And yet all of a sudden there's, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just being negative, but
no, I'm with you. Yeah. I mean, obviously we see earlier in the film that there is that sort of connection between Black Widow and the Hulk, obviously calming him down and, transforming him back into Bruce Banner. But, until Avengers Endgame, the Hulk and Bruce Banner are two completely different identities right now. Yeah. So Black Widow and the Hulk have a good sort of connection there, but not in a romantic way in any way.
Well, no,
and that's Banner is very different, and I'm agreeing with you. It just didn't work for me.
Right? Yeah, it was weird. It just didn't feel. I don't
genuine.
Know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point. All of this film for the Hulk is, he's becoming the character to where Bruce and the Hulk are themselves at odds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they use the character, they use Nat to kind of make the bridge of that to where it's more character development for the Hulk. Yeah, because that comes in later on, and
it's people's and it's people's perception of the Hulk, right? Because he's so worried about him and people seeing him for who he is,
right? Well, look. And super fluffy, I get it. Love at first sight. No, I do believe in it, actually. But ultimately, here's the thing. Well, I kind of do. But it just didn't. And I guess Kyle kind of brings up, he said there were some significant moments for them too in Avengers. I just didn't really feel that there was a relationship there that was. Look, I thought Cap had more of a relationship with Wanda than
Cap was Cap was the wingman to Bruce Banner in that scene. He was just like, "Hey, dude, you should go and get her."
Yeah. I mean, but even then, he had significant.
Yeah, in Winter Soldier.
Yes, absolutely.
During Winter Soldier, and then later on in Civil War too. So.
Absolutely. When she comes to the funeral, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I agree. I thought them two had more of a. If I thought two people were going to get together, it would have been them too. Obviously, it never. That's not going to happen. But that's all. I just wanted to touch on that. Yeah. But we got to touch on the scene, and I have my own take on this, and I think you guys do too. Mjolnir on the table, and everybody tries to become worthy of.
This is one of the biggest, I think, Marvel debates. It's up there with one of the biggest Marvel debates.
I think you know what side I'm on, and
so let's fill people in.
Yeah. So basically, they're there. It's after the party, and just the Avengers are hanging around, and Mjolnir is sitting there on the table. And of course, you can only wield it if you're worthy. And of course, Hawkeye's there saying, "Whatever, man, it's a trick." So he's the first to get up and try to lift it, and he can't budge it.
No way.
He can't budge it. And then
it was Tony.
Tony gets up, and actually, Tony says something that I really am surprised that they allowed in the movie. He talks and says, "Yes, if I lift this, I become king. I can rule." And he goes, "Yeah, you'll rule." He goes, "Well, I will be reinstating Prima Nocta."
Yeah.
And if anyone knows what that is, that's actually not a good.
No.
Look it up, and you'll.
Yeah.
It's actually a horrible thing.
My favorite part was when Rhodey helps him out, and Tony goes, "Are you on my team?" And then Rhodey goes, "Hey, I'm just here to represent. So let's pull. All right, let's go."
Yeah.
And they try it, and they can't do it.
And then Banner gets up there, and he can't do it. And then finally, Cap. Yeah, exactly. And then Cap gets up, and Cap goes over there, and it budges.
Yeah.
And the look on Thor's face is priceless. It's absolutely priceless.
Yeah.
But then he tries a little bit more, and he can't lift it. And then, of course, Thor says, "Nothing." And Cap goes, "I tried," and he sits down.
Or can he?
Right.
That's
this is the debate. So I'm purely on the debate that Cap couldn't lift it yet.
Yeah,
I feel like he was worthy enough, but he wasn't at that pinnacle of that sort of worthiness level. I think that only happened after sort of Civil War, after sort of that sort of, because he's totally worthy, but I think he just wasn't at that point yet. And I feel like you'll see that throughout the film when he was talking to Tony in the farm, which we'll get to. I just don't think he was there yet. I don't think he was letting Thor off the hook.
See,
I don't believe that.
I absolutely think he's letting him off the hook because, well, first off, it fits. But if you really think about it, it fits the personality. He's not the type of guy that takes the credit. He doesn't want to show people up. Yeah. And I could totally see him saying, "No, I'm not lifting this thing. It's not my place to do it." Only when he really had to do I think he did, and of course we'll talk about that at some point. Months down the road, or maybe next week.
We don't know.
Yeah. But I really do feel he could, because to me, if you're worthy, you're worthy. For the most part, you're right, because even Thor wasn't worthy. But see, Thor was worthy because he was, but then he wasn't.
But he wasn't. That's why I mean, like, I feel like you have to be at a certain point to be that sort of worthy status. Because Thor wasn't. He wasn't worthy.
Yeah.
But he was holding Mjolnir before he was even king, and his father took it away from him.
Right.
Maybe he was worthy beforehand. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he must have been, because he was wielding it, because when he went to the Frost Giant's place, he had Mjolnir with him then, and that was before he came back and was sent to Earth.
We streamed talking about the worthiness of the hammer.
Hey, VP, welcome in. Good to see you, Adventures of VP. And Diz Our Dream, welcome in. Good to see you guys.
My partners in crime in the Nerd Talk. So
amen to that. So finally, after that part, and they are all sitting there and they're having fun. That's when Ultron actually comes up from downstairs where the Iron Legion is. Now, of course, the Iron Legion, for those who don't know, are all the robots that Tony has created. Well, he's now assimilated himself into the system and has taken over these robots. And this is where James Spader, who actually voices Ultron, who I think actually is very good.
He did a very good job.
Oh, yeah,
I think he did a good job.
Yeah, he was actually very good. James Spader's a good bad guy.
He was very sarcastic. He was sort of he wasn't a very serious villain. I actually really enjoyed Ultron's villain sort of persona.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about him as the character, I think. A bit
right. More. So he comes upstairs and he's talking, and they all turn around and they're like, "Who is this?" And he's like, "You're all killers." And and he says, "Who are you?" And they, and then he kind of plays back the thing that Tony says, "Peace in our time," talking about Tony. And they're like, "Oh," it kind of hits everybody at that point that they know, "Oh, this is something he created." Yep. And then they have a fight scene where Ultron sent out some of his, I'll call them goons, to fight the Avengers. And they ultimately, the Avengers ultimately win, and they defeat Ultron, or at least they think, but he assimilates into, because he's in the web. Is that correct, Russ?
Yeah. He's part of the internet.
He's
in the internet at this point, so he can.
He's already gone. He's already gone. Like he's
already gone before he's gone. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And
so he says, "I have no strings to hold me down," and you actually hear the little bit of the Pinocchio in there, which is great. But now I want to talk about, to me, which I think is one of the best scenes of the movie. And after he leaves and assimilates into the internet, Thor tries to chase him down and find him, but he can't find him. So he comes back to Stark Tower, and that's when we have this big conversation. Russ and Dan, I want you two to talk about it, and then I'm going to talk about what I like about this scene. Tony has to explain himself at this point, because it's all about trust, and they're the Avengers, they're a team, and yet he did this behind their back, and now he's created a murder bot, as Bruce Banner likes to call it. And they talk about anger, and it's going around. And Russ, no, actually, I'm going to start with Dan this time. Dan, talk about that scene a little bit up there in that room there where they're all, and Tony's got to explain himself.
This, for me, this scene right here is what I would call catalyst to the future of the Avengers and the downfall of the Avengers. As soon as look, I don't care if you've lied about stealing a piece of chewing gum or taking a candy from a grocery store, or you made a killer robot. Lying is lying, right? And once you distrust your team and you break sort of those connections, it's only going to go downhill from there. So as soon as Tony did this and created Ultron, I feel like this led to everything. Civil War. It led to the Avengers eventually breaking up. Spoiler alert, but that was in later films. But it's true. It's absolutely true. And I feel that Tony and his arrogance, which I kind of feel is a bit sort of weird, because Iron Man 3 came out before this movie. And I feel he was less arrogant in Iron Man 3 than he was in Age of Ultron. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Iron Man 3 was blown over the head, really, and the character. And maybe that's because it was a Shane Black film, and Shane Black likes to sort of change a lot of things. Yeah. But I think they went back on the character, and it caused a lot of issues. And it was, I feel, this was a massive deal. Like, this was a big thing that happened in the MCU. This was a pivotal moment.
Yeah, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, it also goes back to Winter Soldier with, with S.H.I.E.L.D., what they were trying to do, and with the helicarriers, and and they're going around and basically going to shoot anybody that they think is a terrorist. It's that world net that's supposed to save the world, and Tony just does what he thinks is right without consulting anyone else.
Yeah,
and and again, especially with Cap. I mean, Cap is all about freedom, and he doesn't want a world police. And
he has a trust issue, isn't he? Because he trusts people as well in Hydra when they found out they were agents.
But that's the point I'm about ready to make. Yeah. All of this boils down to trust. Mm-hmm. And when trust is broken, it can really cripple a relationship and a team. If you don't have the trust, and you're right, whether it's Winter Soldier trusting S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. is backstabbing you, they're not who you think they are, or is something like this where the team trusts Tony to do, be upfront and transparent, and then he's not. And now you're right, Dan. Trust has been broken and is now not as strong as it used to be in the Avengers. Now they're questioning each other.
Right.
Okay. But for me, what I like about this scene most of all, and it does come up again in another movie, when Tony Stark is explaining himself, he basically says, look, we can bust arm dealers all the live long day. That up there is the end game. How did you expect to beat it? And Cap says, together.
Yeah.
And Tony looks at him and goes, we'll lose. And Cap says, then we'll do that together too.
Yeah.
It's my favorite scene of the entire movie. It's apropos of Captain America. I love that scene. It comes up again in Endgame. Tony talks about it. And it ultimately is true because they do lose together. And it's my favorite scene of the entire movie. And there's a lot of good scenes in this movie. But so let's move on from there. Dan, where do we go next? Because at this point, they know they have to retrieve the scepter.
So we find that... So this is one of my sort of big sorts of issues with the film is I love the villain of Ultron, but where we go from where his creation to where he is now, and this is maybe about 10 minutes into the film, we now find him in this church fully formed and, huge. Right. And I'm like, how did Ultron become a skinny little metal robot to now this big giant of a robot in such a short amount of time? He's got, Wanda and Pietro helping him, and they end up, he wants to sort of create basically this peace in our time thing. He wants to wipe out everything. So he's starting to create sort of his evil plan, and he is going to get a certain type of metal from in Africa, which is sold by what's his name? Claw.
Ulysses Claw.
Yeah. Ulysses Claw, which is Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It's
Kong.
Yeah, he's pretty much in everything. What's his name? Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis.
Yeah. Fantastic, by the way.
I think Ulysses Claw, one of my favorite underrated villains in the MCU, who deserved way much more. So Ultron goes to Africa, and they start interrogating Ulysses Claw, and they get the metal vibranium. Now, vibranium, if you don't know vibranium, that's what Cap's shield is made out of, and where it's made is Wakanda, which is where Black Panther comes from. So we're starting to sort of put pieces together.
Right. It's our first link to Wakanda. Yeah, for sure.
Starting to put the pieces in place for Phase 3, which I like.
Yeah. And Russ, actually, I want to take a step back from that, because when the Avengers kind of after that scene where they're all fighting, they go off to Wakanda to try to stop Ultron, and they get there, and there's another really good, and Dan, I want your input on this too, really good fight scene here at Wakanda between Ultron, the Maximoff kids, and of course the Avengers. It's actually done really, really well, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you see,
hey Jim,
you see Scarlet Witch's power come out, because this is where she basically puts them in their little trance thingies that they're, their dreams or whatever, their nightmares. And then you've got Quicksilver just running around, catching them off guard and knocking them out and that kind of thing. But I think Scarlet Witch especially, you also see a lot of Ultron's power, that he's grown, and he's got a lot of similarities to Iron Man with those lasers and things like that. But yeah, you start to see their power come together, and the fact that they're in trouble if they can't figure out how to keep them together. If they can't come together. So,
agreed. Isaac, welcome in, buddy. Yeah, it's funny because there's a funny scene there when they're talking about breaking things, and Ultron says, "Clearly, you've never made an omelet," and Tony goes, "He beat me by 1 second."
Yeah,
but it's another one of those where your kid kind of is you in a lot of ways as your traits. It's kind of that nod to being the father-son kind of thing. It really is.
Yeah.
But,
and this scene,
what do you like about this scene?
This scene sort of starts putting pieces for the future, especially with Wanda and what she does. She manipulates Black Widow, and we find out of a little bit about her past.
Yep.
And she we now obviously are getting a Black Widow movie, which I think will have a bit of a reference to this movie, which is gonna be great. Thor gets manipulated. It's like Asgard, we don't get mind control, blah blah blah, and then he actually does get mind controlled, and it sort of foreshadows Thor Ragnarok, which I really like. With Idris Elba makes a cameo, which I really like. Cap gets mind washed as well when he sees Peggy. But the best one is when she tries to manipulate and mind control Hawkeye, and he goes, done the mind control thing, not a fan.
Yeah.
And I love that. Because they took that. That's great that Joss Whedon remembered that he was already mind controlled in the original Avengers film, and be like, we can't have Hawkeye get mind controlled again. So I love that.
Let me say this, and again, it's what I said earlier. It's why you watch them in order, because you wouldn't have understood that reference if you hadn't saw the original Avengers. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? But to me, and Russ, I don't know about you, and I'm gonna elaborate on this a little bit more. To me, this movie is Hawkeye's movie.
Oh yeah.
This is his movie. He's the star of this movie, in my opinion. And I think a lot of it has to do with because of what they did with him in Avengers, the first one. To me, this is his movie, and I'll elaborate why that is as we get into it a little bit further. But you're right. He doesn't get mind control. But Russ, who does get mind control is Hulk.
Hulk, exactly.
And boy, oh boy, does he cause some havoc, does he not?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it. I think again you see the true danger that Hulk really can be, and yeah, well, a raging Hulk when he has no control over himself.
Right. Hey, Cynthia, welcome in. Good to see you, Candy Mom. Welcome in, Cynthia. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry, Russ. Go ahead.
No, I mean I was going to actually go back to your Hawkeye thing and say,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I feel like Hawkeye has more of a team leader role in keeping the group together in this movie, much more like Cap was in the first movie. And
I couldn't agree more. Not agree more.
And I think that's where he shines. So
right. And that's the thing. That's why I say this is his movie.
Mm-hmm.
He really is the dad. Mm-hmm. I think this whole movie has dad references all over the place. He really is the dad, the glue that keeps them together. And we're going to talk about that a little bit after this scene here, this part of the movie. They kind of go over to, they kind of lose. The three of them get mind, the four of them get mind controlled. Yeah, I mean, the only one who doesn't is Iron Man and Hawkeye, but Iron Man's cleaning up Hulk's mess. Mm-hmm. Is he not, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm not going to talk about the details of the Hulk versus Iron Man fight because, look, for one thing, we are, timing, but two, just go watch it. For the Hulk, we get to see the Hulk Buster versus the Hulk in a city. It is one of my favorite parts. It's one of my favorite action scenes in the whole of the MCU because
go to sleep.
With the elevator going down, it's fantastic.
I like when he punches out his one tooth and he goes, "I'm sorry."
Got me in the back. Dick move, Banner.
Yeah, true.
It's a really great fight scene. Just go watch it. In the end, there was no one who won here. They both lost, and they caused a lot of destruction. So, and then they need to go. They need to get away from sort of the media. They need to get away from everything and sort of be safe somewhere where Ultron's not going to reach them, which leads them to
Hawkeye's home, where he lives. And this is why I think this is his movie, because it ultimately, he really kind of brings them all back together. He gives them the break they need, lets them regroup. Thor kind of goes off and does his own thing. He needs to answer some questions, which we'll get to because they're big questions that he gets answered.
Yep.
But ultimately, they're there and they're regrouping, and there's a lot of talk, a lot of chatter. Cap and Tony kind of get into it verbally a little bit, talking about trust. Again, here we go. It's starting to really sever that relationship. But it is Hawkeye's home, and you see him as a dad and just a human being away from being Hawkeye. And he is, what's funny is, he's the weakest of them all, and yet, like his wife says, they need you, and that's what kind of scares me is the fact that they do need you. So it's a nice scene. I like the scene. I'm glad he got some good airtime in this, and they showed his importance as an Avenger, talking about Hawkeye, and we see it even more as we get back to Sokovia. But it really is. It's his movie.
I think, sometimes in films in general, downtime in films when there's not, things blowing up or no action scenes, when they're just sitting and talking or standing and talking, scenes like this, I think, make the film because you get so much from it. And you compare this sitting and standing, talking here, which is really great, to, I'm going to say, because Eye to Eye were here, Attack of the Clones, where they're just standing and talking absolute rubbish. Sorry, Kyle. That's kind of what I enjoy. I enjoy sort of going that little bit deeper and building those layers of character rather than just things blowing up the whole time.
Agreed.
So,
Addiction Mouse, welcome in. Good to see you. But they do ultimately they kind of get their rest. They Nick Fury shows up, talks to them a little bit, and they understand that, look, ultimately they got to go back to where it all started in this movie, back to Sokovia. They have to go back and retrieve the scepter again. And, they ultimately do. They go back.
They tried to get the staff back from Korea, from the scientist.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I jumped way ahead. Yes. Touch on that, Dan.
Ultron's whole thing is about sort of evolution, and he wanted to create
human race.
Of the human race.
Yes.
And he wanted to create the better version of himself. And the reason why he got the vibranium was because he wanted to create this body in which he can put the Mind Stone from the scepter into him. Right. Obviously, he mind controlled the scientist who was at the party earlier on in the film. Can't remember her name.
Yeah, I missed this. This is a big part, and I totally missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, and and then she kind of comes out of the brainwashing scene, and this was the moment where Scarlet Witch reads sort of this being's mind that's in this cradle, that actually Ultron's ambition was not to sort of evolve the world, but to blow it up. And she was like, we can't have this, we need to live. And they turn, they turn face in terms of wrestling terms. They turn good guys, and they escape. And this was the big scene. They knew that the scepter was in Korea, and they go and try and retrieve it back from Ultron, and in this great sort of cat and mouse chase kind of scene. It was fantastic. I enjoyed this part.
Yeah. Russ, any favorite parts of this scene here?
No, I mean I like the truck scene where they're on the fighting on the truck is amazing. I mean the whole chase of the truck is, with the motorcycle, and Nat has to bring him the shield. I just love that whole scene. I think it's probably my favorite of all of the action scenes.
Well, I feel this is Nat's sort of scene. I feel this is Nat and Scarlet and Black Widow sort of, time to shine as an Avenger, because Cap is sort of distracting Ultron. Hawkeye's in the ship waiting for the scepter. She's supporting and trying to do everything, trying to get the cradle, and it ends up that she gets captured.
Yeah, because ultimately they get the cradle and they get it, and as they're getting it, Ultron kind of kidnaps Black Widow and takes her back.
By the way, I love that it's called a cradle, because this whole being hasn't been born yet. Yeah. I think it's quite a clever sort of.
Well, it's true ultimately, because where do you put your newborns? You put them in a cradle, and
very clever.
Yeah, but it actually is. But they do ultimately they win, but they lose. Yeah. Yes, they get their ultimate goal. They get the cradle, but at a cost of losing. I keep saying Scarlet Witch, but Black Widow ultimately. Natasha gets kidnapped. But then this is the scene where, and this is a big one, and Russ, and we're going to touch on this. They get back to Stark Tower again, and there's Tony again. He's like, they're ready to turn this thing off and destroy it. And Tony's like, maybe we won't. Let's see if we can do this now. And here we go again.
Well, they discover that Jarvis is still there.
Right.
He's not destroyed. So
exactly. Yep. And what they do again, Tony's like, well, Jarvis is still here. Let's try. And then it's like, here he goes again, not telling the whole team, being underhanded, and then Cap comes in with the Maximoff kids, and there's kind of another squabble between the Avengers, and like you said, Dan, there's a chink in the armor when it comes to the relationship of the Avengers at this point.
A bigger chink now, because he's going against them again after that talk at Hawkeye's farm. Mm-hmm. This is, it's only just chinking the armor, and you know what? Bruce is getting manipulated by Tony. It's just like, hey, I'm going to do it. You better do it with me. Like, I want you to put him in there. Like, I want you to put Jarvis into. Yeah. He's Bruce is like, I'm in a time loop. This is exactly what happened last time. It's clever. I enjoy it.
And then they're fighting, and out of nowhere, Thor comes in, takes the hammer with the lightning, and puts it in.
In my opinion, it's the only reason Thor's in the movie.
Yeah. Well, look. We can quickly talk about sort of the scene where Thor goes off on his own journey, which I think was very out of place in this film. Yeah. I feel like we could have put this in Thor: The Dark World, made that a little bit better. But we find out more importance about the overarching storyline of the Infinity Stones.
Right.
And he goes to this pool with Eric Selvig, which is a nice cameo. I like Eric Selvig.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we see, Thor sort of getting an idea of he knew about the Infinity Stones, but this sort of gives a bigger picture of what the Infinity Stones are, what was happening. And this kind of tells him, right, Tony's actually right. We need this. We need the stone. And it's a very out of place scene. I'm not a big fan of where it was placed in this movie, but it was an important scene nonetheless.
Yeah, it was because what it did was we ultimately find out about the Infinity Stones as a whole, not individually, how they come together. But after Thor does the lightning into the cradle, At the time, I'll be honest with you. When I first saw the movie, I thought he was trying to destroy the cradle.
Yep.
But he's really not.
Nope.
He's ultimately trying to bring it to life because he realizes now what it possibly could be. And that's when Vision is born, ultimately. Yep. He comes out, and at first it looks like he's going to fight them. They throw him up against the window. And that's when he kind of looks out at the world. And do you think he's having an epiphany at this point?
There we go.
There he is.
Vision here.
There's Vision. Well, I asked Vision. Vision, what do you think? What is he thinking here when he's looking out at the world? And
what did you think when you saw out the window?
I mean, I think first off, he's trying to figure out what in the world he is, and why he's there. I'm going to take this off because I can't breathe.
Vision has an American accent.
He does. I think first off, he finally realizes, okay, wait, I don't need to fight these people. He's trying to figure it out. He sees the world and realizes, okay, this is what I'm here for. I'm was created to save the world and to help, not to hurt. So,
well, he even says it. He says, "I'm on the side of life."
Exactly.
He says it. He says, "I'm on the side of life." He says, "I don't want to destroy Ultron. I think he's unique,
right?
But I'm on the side of life." And ultimately, Ultron's not on the side of life. So I understand what has to be done.
In the comics, when he's created, it's basically good and evil. Ultron was created, but from the power of evil, whereas Vision is the power of good and light. Mm-hmm. And it's the two different sides of the Mind Stone that make it happen in this movie. So I mean, it is. He's become the polar opposite of Ultron, and ultimately the ultimate weapon to stop him. So
right, and this goes back to the trust. They've just created this being. We have no idea whether it's on the side of Ultron or on the Avengers side. How it's all about trust. Like, how do you know we believe you? How do you know that you have the Mind Stone, you have Thor's lightning that's just being injected as a sort of almost like a blood to get him going. Mm-hmm. Like he's a powerful being, which we know he becomes a very powerful being. And how do we trust him? And which I think it was done for a comedic effect, but it was very truthful that how they trusted Vision was that he was able to lift Thor's hammer. Mm-hmm. And I think
love that scene.
It's a great scene because it was so subtle.
Grabs it. Here you go.
It was so subtle. But that says it all, that they trust him. Look, no one could lift it but Thor. I'm saying no one because Cap doesn't count. No one can lift it but Thor. And Ultron lifted the hammer. And that, shows that, he's worthy.
Right.
Yep. I agree.
And I think the entire team now sees that, okay, we don't have to worry about Vision.
Right.
Let's go deal with what we need to deal with. So
could you imagine if he didn't lift the hammer and then Tony would be like, oh.
Yep. Because Thor even goes up to Tony as they're departing and he goes, "Good work."
Melissa goes, "Why doesn't Cap count?" Because he didn't lift it till the last movie.
Yeah, it's not so late.
He lifted it. He just didn't.
And Brian Ray Bill is
he's not in the MCU. Neither is Superman lifted the hammer, and he's not in the MCU.
Yeah. I think right. I mean, there's two different ways to look at this. There's the comics, and then there's what we have in the movies. Yeah. So we're sticking strictly to movies and what we've seen movie-wise. Yes, we could get into the whole comic universe, and there's so many different ways.
Come watch Nerd Talk for that.
Exactly. I mean, there's seven different ways to Sunday we could talk about comics if we wanted to. I mean, everybody dies 15 times and comes back 16.
Well, Loki dies 30 times and still comes back. So
yes, exactly.
Hey, Loki's a woman sometimes, so
Yeah,
it's all different.
It's all relevant. But I mean, Brian's point. Don't get us wrong, Brian. Your point is well taken, and you're right. It's just for the purposes of the MCU, it's not relevant here.
Right.
That's all. But then finally, we do get to what I was talking about a little bit earlier. We have to go back to Sokovia, and again, we're there to try to beat Ultron, and B, get the get the scepter, which inside is the Mind Stone. And then that's when everything kind of hits the fan, if you know what I mean. Now, this was the one part of the movie for me that I had the most issue with. And maybe I'm overthinking this, or I'm not thinking enough. Because ultimately what Ultron has done is he's going to lift this entire city literally out of the earth up, and he's going to crash it as one big meteor. Mm-hmm. And that's how he's going to think the extinction of the dinosaurs kind of thing. When did he find the time to do this? Because it was literally a day later.
Well, he had his droids doing all the work while he.
I guess, and they work faster than Disney when it comes to building.
He's got these little worker ants that are busy. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because to me, that was the only thing about this movie I didn't understand was they're lifting probably 10 square miles of literal earth out of the earth. And I'm like, this is literally a day later. How did he get all this done that fast? That was a little far-fetched for me.
And they're using Iron Man's technology. So
right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. But so let's talk about this because this is ultimately the culmination of the movie. We've come to the final act here. And the Avengers, right off the bat, they know it. Look, we got to get the people out of here. It's not their fight. This is our fight. And they try to evacuate. But that's when Ultron realizes it and tries to lift the entire city out of the earth up. Yeah. What do we think about this entire final act? Dan, we'll start with you.
Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I think this was Hawkeye's fight. This was Hawkeye's moment, I think, in the MCU. Maybe, you could talk about him a bit more in Endgame, but, he for me, this whole thing was about Hawkeye. And
he's really the leader.
He was definitely the leader. And, Tony was trying to figure out a way to lower the city. Cap and Thor were kind of the big heavy hitters in this fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome.
Hulk was retrieving Black Widow from being captive at this Hydra base. So they were kind of occupied. And pretty much Hawkeye was, looking after the Maximoff twins. And, Pietro was, doing his thing. And, he was doing his thing. And but, Wanda was scared. She was, very sort of, she doesn't want to fight, and she was hiding. And Hawkeye gave a great pep. One of my favorite scenes. I think this was probably my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah.
When, he was just like, hey, we got, things blowing up in the sky, and, the sky is, the city is flying. And I got a bow and arrow. And I'm just like, yo, you're an event. Look, if you step out those doors, you're an Avenger. Yeah. Or I'll come get your brother to come and get you. Like, I love that. And, Hawkeye just gets on.
He's being a dad. I'm telling you, he's being a dad.
Absolutely. And it was my favorite scene in the film. And then obviously Wanda comes out from that, and the Wanda that we know, she becomes even more powerful than what she was. And then obviously we'll get to Hawkeye. The Quicksilver's ending.
Right.
Where, Hawkeye sees this kid in the market. He goes and gets this kid, and Ultron's in one of the Quinjets and starts shooting. And then Quicksilver sees out of nowhere, rushes, brings a car over, and then we get sort of the demise of Quicksilver. And he says, I didn't see that coming, which goes back throughout the film. And look, his death, it didn't invest into me emotionally.
Right.
But, it was I do like the fact that he sort of died through what he felt was good, and that it was with Hawkeye and that connection, which I really liked.
Yeah, I agree. Charlie and Stacy, the Nerd Herders, welcome in. Good to see you guys. Russ, I want you to talk about that a little bit, this last culmination scene here, because ultimately what's going to happen is Ultron wants to press the button and drop this down. It's far enough up now into the atmosphere that if he drops it, it's global annihilation. It's going to be like a meteor that will end the world. And the Avengers got to stop that while they're trying to get everybody off. And of course, Nick Fury shows up and he kind of helps them to get everybody off. Because at first they're like, we have no way of getting all these people off. It's either us up here or everybody down there. We have to make a decision.
Right.
and Fury shows up. To me, it's kind of an afterthought. You knew something was going to happen because he even said it before he left. But what do you think of the whole scene, that last fight scene, and right there, that whole thing?
Well, I mean, I agree with Dan. I mean, it's all about Hawkeye as far as, he's the leader now of the group as far as the motivational part, because without him, Wanda wouldn't have shown up to stop Ultron, and to stop him from pushing the button. Obviously Vision comes in later too, but I do feel like Wanda is the one that saves them all. And and allows them the time for Thor and Iron Man to do what they need to do to take care of the engines, and to get their plan in place. So I mean, again, they're finally coming back together as a team, when they've been fighting amongst each other all this time, and again, you see Cap, all he's really doing is fighting off the robots,
right?
And it all comes down to Wanda, who has to stop Ultron. So.
Yeah, I agree. And touching on the Quicksilver and Hawkeye relationship, basically throughout the entire film, it's they're butting of the heads. It's kind of like a son butting his head with his dad. They don't have the best relationship at first, and they're going at it.
Competition,
confrontational, sure. But then in the end, he saves him. Quicksilver, at the cost of his own life, saves Hawkeye. He does. He saves him. And it's funny because when I first watched that, when he steps off to go save that kid, I looked at Melissa and I said, "Oh wow, Hawkeye's going to die." I said, "You can just." It felt like it. It felt like he was going to die. I said to Melissa, "No," I said, "They're going to kill him." I said, "I can feel it." And then when Ultron was shooting, I'm like, "Here, they're going to kill him right here." And then Quicksilver came in and saved him, and he died instead. I was really kind of upset. I wanted to see more from Quicksilver. I kind of felt bad that they weren't going to keep that character.
I felt like in this film, I think you could maybe relate, is that I think Joss Whedon was very sort of worried about putting too many people in this movie. Mm-hmm. So when S.H.I.E.L.D. turns up, with Nick Fury and Agent Hill, we see War Machine taking out a lot of Ultron's drones.
Yeah.
Now, why? It's great seeing Rhodey. I do enjoy Rhodey as a character, but Falcon was in the movie too. Why didn't Falcon show up?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have easily had, a couple of clips of
Falcon's off looking for Bucky.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's how I took it, Russ. I took it that he couldn't get there even if he wanted to. He was doing his own thing, and they had the help they needed.
Yeah. I just feel like, but he was in the film earlier, wasn't he, at the party?
He was there for a quick cameo.
But that's why I thought it would have been fitting if he was there, because if he wasn't at the party and then didn't turn up at the end, then I wouldn't have had a problem. But I feel like he could have showed up. Like, look, if Iron Man can have his bud here, why can't Cap?
Yeah, I agree. No, I wouldn't have had a problem if he was there. He would have been more help. They needed it anyway. Yeah. But ultimately, in the end, they do. One of the robots did actually push the thing, and it was falling back down to Earth. And Thor and Iron Man were successful because what they ultimately had to do, folks, was they had to blow it up from the inside and make it into a lot of little pieces to come back down to Earth instead of one big meteor. And it made sense. It for sure, that makes sense for sure. I thought that was kind of interesting. And actually, that kind of leads into what Civil War does, because when they blew it up, it went all over.
Created even more of a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it created more of a mess, but it did save the world.
Oh, right.
They ultimately did what they were.
They saved the world, but at the sacrifice of Sokovia. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely, and not on purpose. They didn't mean to do that. That's not what they wanted to do.
Which is when we get to Civil War, will explain a lot of that. So
exactly. Yep. And then the final scene before the end of the movie, there's actually one robot left that gets out. And Tony even said none of them, because he got locked out. Jarvis was able to lock him out of the internet. Yeah. Talking about Ultron. He got him locked out, so he couldn't just move off on his own. but there was one left. And this is my second favorite scene in this movie. And it looks like he's escaping, and Vision finds him. And Vision is talking to Ultron, and they're talking about humans and this and that. And, Vision says, I think they have a lot of flaws, but there's beauty in their flaws and this, that, and the other. And Ultron looks at him and goes, "You're incredibly naive." And Vision goes, "Well, I was born yesterday." It's such a great. He really nailed it on that because the old saying, "Man, what were you born yesterday?" It's actually really, really funny. It's one of my favorite scenes. I just love that line. He goes, "Yep, I was born yesterday," and he does destroy the last one, and they win. They ultimately win, and I'll let you guys talk about the final scene back at the Avengers base and kind of where everybody is, because Hulk has left the scene at this point, has he not?
Yeah.
Yep. Hulk jumps in the Quinjet and flies off.
Who knows where he's going to end up?
Right.
Yeah.
And they all have to now recover from what has just happened, and again, there's still a lot of problems in the team.
Yeah.
And, which again, we'll find out later on in the other movies. But, it's basically a restart now.
Yeah.
They've got to come back to the base and, all right, what's next? They've got to start training the new people that they have now and prepare for the next fight. So,
yeah. And Dan, Thor kind of talks about it. He goes back to Asgard because he talks. Finally, it's the cat's out of the box. He says, all these Infinity Stones are showing up now all of a sudden. It's not a coincidence.
Yep.
There's a bigger person. There's a bigger somebody else is pulling the strings. And so we finally are there.
Thor is kind of like the character that bridges gaps between Earth and sort of the known universe. That's what it is. Yeah. And Thor, says to Cap and Iron Man, "This is the third Infinity Stone we've had on Earth in the last 2-3 years." So obviously it's not a coincidence. So obviously he's going to try and investigate that, and then he uses the thing, the Rainbow Bridge, the Bifrost, and one of my favorite lines. Tony, with his wit, says that guy has no respect for lawn maintenance. Great, it's great line.
I agree.
And then the film kind of ends with Cap and Iron Man sort of just discussing what's going to happen and their future, and you could tell there's still that bit of tension. So
yeah, and it's too bad. The tension is there, but Tony even says, hey, maybe I'll go and I'll build a farm for Pepper, and we'll just kind of live out our days there. And he looks at Cap and he goes, you'll get there one day. And it's kind of a premonition of things to come for him. But and then that's kind of where the movie ends. You see Cap goes in with Black Widow, and you see the new recruits ready to go, and they're going to train them. And he goes, "Avengers," and then they cut the scene because he doesn't say it yet.
And then we've got an end credit scene, which I found very sort of weird. Thanos, puts on the Infinity Gauntlet and says, "Fine, I'll do it myself." I feel like that was a bit too soon for him to do that.
I absolutely fantastic end scene in my opinion, because he was the guy behind Avengers, the first one. It failed miserably. Right. He kind of, I think he had a play in this one. It just doesn't really come out because of that Infinity Stone. And then this is where he's finally like, you know what? That was strike 2. There won't be a strike 3. I'll do it myself. Yeah. I loved it. I think it's one of my favorite end scenes for me.
It's great. It is good. I do agree there.
Yeah. I get where you're saying there, Dan, as far as, it might have been too soon. But again, the next Avengers movie, is Infinity War. So, I mean, you got to introduce him somehow that he's coming, and even though we have Civil War, which is kind of a mini Avengers, it's
and then obviously we get a little bit more Thanos in Guardians, so I guess this is a good sort of start point for him. So
yeah. Well, we already saw. Remember, Guardians of the Galaxy was just before Ultron.
Was it? I thought it was up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now. It was just before. Guardians of the Galaxy was August 1st, 2014. Age of Ultron was May 1st, 2015.
Yep.
Wow. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we had actually gotten a little bit of Thanos at that point, and what his he was introduced at this point. But overall, let's give this movie a rating. Now, Russ, here's how we do it here. We don't rate it 1 to 10. We give it a letter grade, like you would in school. A+ is the best of the best. Unbelievable movies, just the fantastic movies. Of course, F speaks for itself. And everybody in the chat, this is where we need you. We want you to give this movie, if you've seen it, give it your letter grade. A+, C+, F, whatever it might be. You let us know. We're going to go around one at a time. Our special guest is Russ. So, Russ, you get to go first. But if you had to give her a letter grade, what grade are you giving this movie?
So I'm going to say an A-.
Okay.
Very nice.
I think it's still a very good movie. I have some issues with it, but again, and I'm also comparing it to the other Marvel movies.
Yep.
In my grade here, but I mean, I think an A- is good. I love Vision. He's probably one of my favorite Marvel characters.
I mean, you took his face off. So.
I did. I took his face. So.
If anybody's seen Face Off, that's a great movie.
But yeah, I mean, I think of all of the movies, I think it is a great movie. I mean, it's a good standalone movie. It's on its own too, but then it also, continues the story. So,
okay, all right, fantastic. Dan, what about you, buddy?
I think obviously if you've been watching our series, C is kind of like my average. I'm on a similar wavelength to you, Russ. I'm giving it a B+. I don't feel it hits that A just because there are those few issues with the movie. I feel like some of it was a bit sort of all over the place with Thor going to the river, to the pond thing, and a bit less time with characters. And but there was a lot. But this is nowhere near a bad movie. This is a really good movie. I really enjoy it, and it's definitely a rewatchable film for me. It's nowhere near the best Marvel films, but it's nowhere near the worst. So I'm giving it a strong B+.
Very nice. For me, I'm going to give it a B. It's not one of my favorites. I have seen it a lot because it's been on a lot. It has one of my favorite scenes in it. I think that helps. A few of my favorite scenes. I think that helps it a lot. It really builds us and builds that bridge to the movies to come. But there's certain things about it. I think there's too many fight scenes. We don't need as many as we have. I think the Sokovia at the end, they could have taken a little bit from that. They didn't need that. Went on for forever. It felt like, it's like, how long does it take to load these people onto these? So there's parts of it that I think they could have cut it and cut this movie down just a little bit. It's felt a little too long for me. But there are things about it I like. It introduces Wakanda. We finally get some new characters. Of course, Scarlet Witch is introduced in this movie. Vision is introduced in this movie, which is great. So it's good in that respect. And it does keep building the bridge to get us to where we ultimately get. Yeah. Its continuity is kind of all over the place.
I agree.
Which is a little frustrating at times. But overall, it's a good movie, and that's why it gets a B for me. And B is the highest grade I've given out so far. I don't think I've given anything higher than this yet. Everything's usually about a C+ or lower.
Yeah. Didn't you give one higher for George of the Jungle?
I gave it an F. I'll be honest with you. Too many. Let's see. Donna says too many plot holes for me. Why give Quicksilver just to kill him off? I agree. Or why have Quicksilver just kill him off? And I don't understand Natasha and the Hulk's relationship. It seemed forced. That was us too. I think we all felt the same way.
We got loads of grades up above.
Yes, let me go back to those grades because you're right. We do have fantastic grades too. B+ for Candy Mom. Captain Akron says B. Caitlin and Wendy haven't seen it, so they can't grade it. Makes sense. Alex gives it a B+. C+ for Kay Atwood. Noah gives it a B+. Pamela gives it a B+. Team Marie Photography. Tina says it's been a while, but I didn't like it, so I'm giving it a B-. B for Melissa. Donna gives it a B. Richard the Legend R. Johns gives it a B. B+ for Jonathan. For a scale of A to F for Brian, he gives it an A, not S tier. I think he means F as in Frank, but not bad. So it belongs in B. Okay. C+ for VP. James, you haven't seen this movie? I'm surprised, buddy. You have to see this one. Charlie says Stacy says Charlie left the room. Any movie with Loki is an A+. Actually, he's not in this movie.
He's not in this one. I know.
He's not in it.
Yeah, he's actually not in this one.
Yep.
Let's see what else here. Did I miss anybody?
Kay Atwood gave it a C+.
Oh, there she is. I'm sorry. I think you and I are the only ones to give it a C+. Yep. Okay. And look, if somebody gives it a C+, I get it. I almost gave it a C+, but I bumped it just a little bit because I like really some good scenes in there. But that's just me.
Philly Cree went with B+.
Yep. Oh, yeah. There we go. Yep. Right there. Okay. Then a B due to Loki list.
I love that. I love that, Stacey.
Oh, my gosh. Well, we are past 7 o'clock. We ran a little bit over, guys. I apologize. Thank you to everyone in the chat for hanging in there and having a good time with this. We appreciate all of your input. The chat's always fantastic. But we have to do – so, Russ, after each and every week, we have to pull for next week. It's kind of like almost like a Book of the Month club. You know? Joey's best bud. What's up, Keith?
Hey.
Good to see you, buddy. He gives it an A. Look at you. Nice. Phantasmic Chronicles, welcome in. I love to have these grades in high school. I would have loved to have. Amen to that.
When Wendy Luca goes, there it is. And like, yep, here we go. So if you haven't been here before, every week we choose a new movie from ironically, it's a movie from a Tyrion Lannister Funko Pop. Because Tyrion's from a TV show where we randomly choose a movie for next week. So it's up to you if you would like to watch it for next week. But should we get pulling? Should we choose one?
The pool. It's time for the pool.
Here we go.
Here we go. Russ, I'm nervous, man.
By the way, next week's show will be on my channel. So this review that I'm pulling right now will be on my channel. Let's go for...
Wendy says she hopes it's something she's seen. Me too.
Alrighty, I've got one. Let's see what we got. This is quite fitting. With a lot of controversy going on with this particular attraction, we are watching Splash with Tom Hanks.
Oh, all right. Okay.
We are watching Splash with Tom Hanks. We will obviously...
Tom Hanks, John Candy.
We will talk about Splash Mountain because that has a big involvement with this movie.
Ray J, welcome in.
We are going to be watching Splash Mountain this week. So no, not watching Splash Mountain. We're watching Splash. Watching Splash. We are watching Splash. So if you've seen Splash, or if you've not seen Splash, have a go watch it this week, and we will talk about it on my channel next week.
Oh, it's going to be great. That's going to be great. Well, thank you, everybody. Let's go around really, really fast. Russ, first and foremost, buddy, a special thank you to you for coming out tonight. Yeah. I hope you had fun with this. Did you have a good time? I hope, Al?
Oh, yeah, I love it. Anytime we get to talk about Marvel, so.
Amen to that. Tell us a little bit about your channel. Everybody in the chat, if you haven't already subscribed to Russ's channel, please do so. Russ is fantastic. Not only does he have a great channel, but he is incredibly talented with T-shirts and things of that nature, and what he creates is absolutely mind-blowing, and I'm in awe of some of the things you do, Russ. You're incredibly talented, pal, and it's an untapped potential, I think, in my opinion, for you. We just so happy you could come out tonight. Everybody, be sure to if one of my mods could put his link to his channel out there, I'd appreciate it. What do you got coming up?
Well, every Saturday at 3, I have a show that's called What in the World with Russ. And we kind of vary things. I do some art stuff. I do cooking. We just sit around and talk. We play games. Yesterday, we played Sorry and Candyland. So, we just have fun and just get together. And then Sundays at 4, and then we rotate between my channel, Diz Our Dream, Kinsey Days, and Tracy Glenn, who's Kinsey Days' dad. And we rotate around and we do nerd talk. And it's right now our next movie will be Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Nice.
And so we're excited about that one. That's going to be on Tracy's channel next Sunday at 4. Nice. But yeah, we and then I'm always jumping on other people's streams and hanging out, and so you can probably find me all throughout the week. But yeah, I just love having fun, hanging out, and getting to know you guys and making new friends. So,
yeah,
well,
absolutely.
We're honored to have you here. Yeah. Russ is a great guy. He's an incredible supporter of this community. We're honored to have you, pal, and we're so glad you could make it out today for sure. Thank you again. And then this guy over here, my partner channel. This has been, each and every week I say to myself, it's how can it get any better than what we did the week before? And it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic, pal. Thank you again to you, my brother, for being here. And what's coming up on Disney Dan's channel?
This week got some vlogs coming up. Disney Nuts hopefully back on Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Disney Food Friday on Friday. Trying to get those out as soon as I can. Disney Fiasco episode 102 will be on next Saturday, 7 p.m. That's for my flagship show. Disney Fiasco episode 102. That's always a fun show to do. And then back on my channel, Disney Movie Review, 6 p.m. next week, where we're going to be talking about Splash. So
can't wait.
Going to be a very interesting one. So, and you know what, Walt? I've been loving doing these Disney movie reviews. It allows me to watch films that I haven't seen before. Maybe some of you guys have never seen before, and it's kind of like our Disney book club, but it's movies that we do every week. So.
Agree.
I love doing this, and it's been a really fun one. I don't know how Splash is going to compare to Avengers, but we will see.
Yeah, we'll see. Tina, big deal. Welcome in, dear. Yes, we are finishing up, and then for us, we have a big. Tomorrow we are going live 11 a.m. from Disney's Hollywood Studios. So if you're looking for something to do on a Monday and you're missing Disney and you're having the Disney blues, come on over to our channel. I'll be live from Hollywood Studios tomorrow. We're going to ride some rides, walk around, go into some stores. We're going to watch the cavalcade. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe blow away with the hurricane, depending upon what's happening. But we are live tomorrow, 11 a.m. Tuesday, we'll be back with Disanity. Just posted a few more vlogs. Sights and Sounds. We've been doing Sights and Sounds, a new thing I came up with where you just kind of get different views of lands and areas around Walt Disney World. I've been enjoying that personally. Go out and take a look at those videos and a lot of vlog videos from us. Just a lot going on. We're very lucky to be down here. But
the list goes such a diverse list of movies for sure. For sure. Whole point of the show.
Yeah, I agree. So last thing I want to do before we leave, I always ask Russ. I don't know how you sign off, but how do you sign off from your channel, pal?
I just, see you guys next time and enjoy your week and just see you next time.
Awesome. Dan, how do you sign off, pal?
You know what I say. Eat more Dole Whip. No. It's live your life with a smile each and every day.
Amen to that. And then for us, I always, look, you have a choice of where you spend your time, and you chose to spend it here with us today. Your time is very valuable, and we are honored that you would take the time to spend it with us, and we hope that we've entertained you, and we hope that you made you smile and that you had a great time. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will talk to you all really, really soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. See you next week. Or see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.